So when it comes to terminating an employee, the termination meeting isn't where things go wrong for employers. It's everything the employer or the manager doesn't decide on before they walked into the meeting. Here are 4 decisions that determine whether a termination of an employee is going to be less risky or if it's going to become a costly mess. So the first decision is whether it's going to be a cause termination or a without cause termination. Now, if you are an employer who goes into a meeting trying to terminate an employee with cause, meaning that you don't have to pay any more monies to them, this is a very risky approach and should only be used and utilized if you have cause that is legal under the Employment Standards Act. If it has no intention and if the conduct isn't serious enough to justify not paying the employee anything, then you should really be reconsidering this. If you can't meet the legal standard, proceed without cause and doing it cleanly is almost always recommended. Now, what do you actually owe them? That's the second decision. Now, in this case, you need to look at your contract and make sure that you have a contract, and you make sure that you look at the termination provision and see if it's compliant with Ontario law. If it has the words that you can terminate at any time, then you might have some concerns that you need to be addressing with a lawyer, right? Because if you make a mistake in this specific piece, that you might think that you could be on the hook for a smaller amount, but then the employee will sue for wrongful dismissal, and then you can be in the hook for a much larger amount, maybe 2 or 3 times more. The third decision is whether the employee is going to be terminated, whether they're going to give them working notice or pay in lieu of. So this is a question of whether the employee is going to work out their notice period or if you're going to pay them out and they're going to leave immediately. Both ways here are legal, but both have operational considerations. Think about it. If you have confidential information or information that you want to keep secret, you don't necessarily want to have the employee to continue working for you. The decision here shapes everything about what happens in phase 2 when you actually make the termination decision and you communicated that to the employee. And then the last decision you think about is the termination letter. You can draft a letter to an employee that can be full of wild allegations, but that could come back to bite you. You might want to use your employment termination letter as a way of communicating the bare essentials and make sure it's respectful. Draft it, review before the meeting with the lawyer, hand it in the room, not emailed or given afterwards. So these are 4 decisions that you need to be thinking about, made before you say any word to the employee. Strategy first and then the conversation. And if you want this checklist for all 3 phases, phase 1 before the conversation, phase 2 the conversation itself, and then phase 3 what you say after the conversation's finished and what you need to be thinking about, just drop termination below and I'll share with you our Ontario Employees Termination Checklist. It's a simple guide that helps you map these decisions before you walk into the room to terminate the employee.